There is a number so quiet, so invisible, that most people live their entire lives without ever noticing it. It doesn't show up on your paycheck. It doesn't ring when it arrives. But for a small group of people, that number grows while they sleep, while they eat breakfast, while they sit in traffic on a Tuesday morning, and eventually, that number grows large enough to make the traffic optional, not someday in a vague, wishful sense. Mathematically, measurably, optional. Most of us were taught a single story about money. You work, you get paid, you spend, maybe you save a little, and then you do it again for 40 years until someone throws you a party and gives you a gold watch. That story is so deeply embedded in how we think that questioning it feels almost reckless. But here is what the story leaves out. Money, the right kind, placed in the right way, doesn't just sit there. It works. Compound interest is simply this. You earn a return not just on your original money, but on every return that came before it. It sounds modest. It doesn't feel modest. $10,000 growing at 10% annually doesn't just double once. In 30 years, without you adding a single additional dollar, it becomes over $174,000. That is the quiet number. But compounding alone is only the beginning, because the real secret isn't one stream of growing money. It's what happens when you build several. Each new income stream feeds the others. Each one makes the next one easier. At a certain point, the whole system starts to move faster than you can fully track, not because you worked harder, but because the streams found each other. That is the snowball effect. And to understand it, you need to start at the very top of the hill. Imagine you are standing at the start of your working life. You have time, which is, in this story, the most valuable asset you will ever own. Not talent, not connections. Time, because time is the only ingredient that transforms a small, ordinary decision into something extraordinary. Consider two people who both invest $500 a month at 8% annually. The first starts at 25. The second waits until 35, just 10 years later. By 65, the first has accumulated roughly $1,740,000. The second has just under $745,000. Same monthly amount, same return, same discipline. A 10-year gap cost the second person nearly $1 million. That is not a typo. Time doesn't just help compounding. Time is compounding. Every year you wait is not a neutral pause. It is an active subtraction from the final number. The snowball doesn't grow on flat ground. It needs the slope. So let's say you decide to start. Most people build their first income stream through investments in the stock market. The S&P 500 has delivered an average annual total return of around 13.6% over the 10 years ending in 2024, when dividends are reinvested. Dividends are small cash payments companies make to shareholders, usually every quarter. When you reinvest those instead of spending them, they buy more shares, which earn more dividends, which buy more shares. The snowball gets its first real push. But here is the tension most people never resolve. About 54% of American families own stocks in some form. Yet the average 401k contribution sits at just 7.4% of salary, when experts say you need 15% or more to build real momentum. The gap between knowing and doing is where most snowballs die before they ever start rolling. Information alone has never compounded. Only action does. The savings rate, how much of your income you actually set aside and invest, is the single most powerful lever in the entire system. Not your investment returns, not which stocks you pick, how much you save. At a 10% savings rate, reaching financial independence takes roughly 43 years. Push that to 25% and it drops to 32. These are not small differences. These are decades of your life. Save 50% of your income and you can reach financial independence in approximately 17 years, regardless of how much you earn. That last part matters. This is not a rich person's trick. It is a math problem, and math does not check your salary. Save 75%, and the timeline compresses to roughly 7 years. 7 years from starting to optional. Most people never consider this as real because they have never seen the arithmetic laid out plainly. But the arithmetic doesn't care whether you believe it. The first income stream is growing. What comes next is where real acceleration begins. The second stream most people build is real estate, either through rental properties or through a real estate investment trust, known as a REIT. A REIT is essentially a company that owns income-producing properties, apartment buildings, office towers, shopping centers, and is required by law to distribute at least 90% of its taxable income to shareholders. You get the income without owning a single brick. Over the 25 years ending in 2023, US REITs delivered an average annual total return of around 11.4%. That is a second engine running quietly alongside the first. Here's what changes when you add a second stream. The income from one can fund the other. Dividends from your stock portfolio can flow into your AREIT holdings. Rental income can top up your index fund investments. The streams stop being independent. They start feeding each other. This is where the snowball metaphor starts to feel too gentle. It is less like a snowball rolling downhill and more like a river finding tributaries, each one adding volume, each one adding speed, the whole thing moving with a force that no single source could generate alone. A third stream many people build is digital or intellectual. A course, a book, a piece of software, a template. The initial work is real and often significant. But once it exists, it runs. And the revenue it generates can be invested directly into the first two streams, accelerating them without you lifting a hand. Each new stream you add does not just increase your income mathematically. It changes how you think about money. You stop seeing your paycheck as the only source. You become less anxious because no single stream is carrying all the weight. The research is striking here. 65% of self-made millionaires have at least 3 income streams. That is not a coincidence. It is the architecture of financial resilience, built deliberately, one stream at a time. But here is the invisible cost most people skip over. Building multiple streams takes real energy. The first few years are not passive. You are doing 2 things at once, working your primary job while constructing the systems that will eventually replace it. This phase has a name: the grind. The antidote to the grind is not motivation. Motivation fades. The antidote is automation. Make the contributions automatic, taken before you see the money, routed before you can spend it. When saving happens by default, it is no longer a willpower question. It becomes invisible. As the streams mature, the passive income starts to cover real expenses. First, the small ones: a utility bill, a car payment, then the larger ones. And then, at a point that arrives faster than expected, the passive income equals your monthly expenses. That moment has a name: the crossover point. A 10% return on $100,000 is $10,000 a year. A 10% return on $500,000 is $50,000 a year. Same percentage, completely different life. This is the asymmetry of compounding that most people never live long enough in the process to see. The early years feel slow because they are slow. The returns are real but small. This is where people abandon the process, concluding it isn't working. But the graph of compound growth is not a straight line. It curves. And the curve bends upward so sharply that the entire first decade can look nearly flat by comparison. You are not failing in the early years. You are loading the spring. The energy is accumulating. The slope is building. And one day, not dramatically, not with a ceremony, The snowball simply stops needing you to push it. Financial independence, for most people who reach it, is far quieter than yachts and private jets. It is the ability to say no to a job that is damaging you. It is spending a Tuesday morning the way you want, rather than the way someone else requires. It is options. And options are one of the rarest things a person can possess. Remember that quiet number from the beginning? The one that doesn't show up on your paycheck, doesn't ring when it arrives. That number was never about luck or income. It was a system, patient, invisible, and accelerating, built stream by stream, year by year, until the work became a choice rather than a sentence. The entire idea distilled. You don't need to earn more to change your financial life. You need to start earlier, save more aggressively, and let the streams find each other. The snowball, the hill, the slope, they were always there. The only question that has ever mattered is when you decide to start the roll.